This is going to be a video on building a 60 watt vacuum tube monoblock amplifier. Of course, you need to build two of these so you can have stereo, but this is, I'm just going to do one and then obviously duplicate everything into a second one. And this is based on the Dynaco Mark III, which was designed by David Hafler and Ed Laurent in 1957. Just a couple of years before I was born. And then later that company designed in 1959, the year I was born, they designed the Dynaco ST70, which I just finished building one over here. I've got on the bench and I'm burning the tubes in on that. But this is probably the most requested amplifier that I build. Monoblocks are, they're two separate amplifiers. There can't be any crosstalk between power supplies, transformers, circuit boards, or any of that kind of thing. These are truly meant to do one thing, and that is to duplicate one of the two channels in a stereo system. So they're very clean. They sound very well. This one at 60 watts per channel can drive the most demanding of speakers with really good efficiency. So one of the things that I didn't like when I was building the Mark III kit that was available was that it had a steel chassis, nickel plated. It was kind of, and it also had a metal cage on it so that kids and pets couldn't touch any of the high voltages that were on the surface of it, which makes sense. But it hid the tubes and the circuitry, which was a shame. I didn't like that appliance look, so I sourced out some hardwood aluminum chassis from a company called Hammond, and this one is walnut. It has a top and bottom plate. The bottom plate has the rubber feet on it. They're blank, completely blank, and I will be drilling all the holes needed in this, along with opening up, well, this is the front, but I'm going to be opening it up and putting a piece of metal to mount all of the input-output hardware on that. And then I've got the choke here. This is the output transformer. It weighs 10 pounds all by itself. There's a lot of steel and copper in that. This is the power transformer, supplies the power to the various circuits in the amplifier. It weighs 8 pounds all by itself. And then I've got some of the wiring. This is the 120 volt line in cord that I use. Also for the input wire, I use Mogami shielded wire. It's very good quality wire. And then for all of the hookup wire, I use 20 gauge PTFE mil-spec silver solder wire. It's very high quality, very good conductance with that wire. Then we've got the octal sockets for the output tubes and the rectifier, and then for the driver tube that goes onto the circuit board. And then we've got most of these components go on the back of the amplifier. The 120 volt in, quick disconnect socket, on-off switch, fuse post and fuse, binding post for the speakers, input, gold-plated on the inputs on this. And then this is a socket, 1/8 inch mono socket for the checking the bias on the tubes. Now I don't have all the parts here. This is just the most basic of the parts. There's a lot of resistors and capacitors not shown in this picture. I'll be going through this video, and I'm going to do it in phases. This isn't going to be a step-by-step video on how to build this amplifier. It's just going to be a basic overview of what it takes to do it. Maybe you can get a feel whether this might be something you'd be interested in doing. But I do have some of the parts for the bias circuit here, resistors, capacitors. Got the circuit board here, and then I've got some metallized polypropylene capacitors for the circuit board. They have a 5% tolerance, and they're rated at 630 volts, so really good units there. Also a quad cap capacitor here. It's got 4 legs on it, and It's rated at 80, 40, 30, and 20 microfarads with a 550, 600 volt surge on that. So that's a really good unit there. Much better than the original. There's the mounting hardware for that. And I've got some basic wire routing clamps that I use, kind of keep things neat and tidy in the chassis. Get the circuit board right here. I'm going to be putting that, soldering everything up there. Bias potentiometer and knob. And then what I think is the best part of these amplifiers are the vacuum tubes. And for this one I'm going to be using the 6550 by Electro Harmonics. It's a very rugged, solid built tube. Very good sounding. I get really good results with this tube. No failures, and just a really good tube all around. And then for the rectifier, I'm going to be using a GZ34 by Tube Amp Doctor. These are hand selected in Germany for quality. They're very much like the black plate RCA and new old stock tubes that have just become prohibitively expensive. And this tube is very reminiscent of the construction and the quality materials of those tubes. And then for the driver tube, I've actually got a GE new old stock 6AN8A that I'm going to be using for that tube on the circuit board. Now, these parts, you can get a complete kit minus the chassis. Of course, it has a chassis, but it's stainless steel and it looks exactly like the original. And if you like that, that's great. You should get one of those from dynakitparts.com. Kevin at Dynakit Parts can hook you up with all of the parts to make a complete kit, or the parts I buy from him, like all of the transformers, the circuit board. I buy these metallized polypropylene caps from him. I buy the 4-section capacitor can from him. Pretty much I try and buy everything I can from Kevin. He's very knowledgeable in these kits. And so this is going to be the beginning. The next thing that's going to happen now is I'm going to take this top plate off out to my drill press. I have a template for building these amps, and I'm going to start drilling a bunch of holes in it.